Hi everyone, welcome back to the LNS Crafts channel. My name's Lorraine and I'm coming to you from Kent in the UK. For those of you that are joining me for the first time, welcome. I hope that you enjoy this video and you continue to come back and see what I've been working on and share what you're working on in the comment section below. I will try and leave information, links as to patterns if there are any, or charts in the description box below the video, so do check that out for any information. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask those in the comment section below the video. For those of you that are returning, thanks so much for coming back. Some of you may know I have been unwell. I've had a really bad cold over the last couple of weeks and I'm kind of at the tail end of it now, so I feel well enough to do a video. But over the last couple of weeks my voice went, my chest was tight, the lot, so I wasn't able to record a video much as I would have loved to have done it last week. I really wasn't up to it, so this is the first opportunity. But I have been doing some crafting. I've tried not to, this is the thing, it's the funny thing about when you're ill, I've tried not to do any kind of crafting while I was really snotty because I didn't want to kind of taint my projects with all the germs, so I stopped for a while, and then once I felt better and I wasn't so sneezing and coughing and all of that, then I picked up my crafting and I started again. So and do any of you guys do that as well? Do you feel like, you know, if you're ill you're going to kind of taint your projects if you touch them while you're unwell? That's how I felt anyway, so I didn't really want to do anything too much. Anyway, so that aside, I have managed to do quite a few things in the last couple of weeks when I felt better, and so I have got some knitting to show you, some crocheting and some cross stitching. So if you're interested in those, keep watching. Let's start off with the knitting, shall we? So the first thing I have to share with you is a pair of socks. In my last video I showed you some yarn. There's a Noel Rhodes Signature 4-ply by West Yorkshire Spinners yarn. That's the yarn label, and the colour that I showed you was Botanical Bloom. Even that's what I was working with. So I had these wound up in balls, two separate balls, because I knew I was going to use them for socks, and I now have completed the socks. So these are using my standard vanilla sock recipe that I like to use for my socks, and that is an old Norwegian cast on at the top. I do top down, old Norwegian cast on, otherwise known as German twisted rib, German twisted cast on. Then I do a 2x2 rib at the top of the socks. Then I work down in stocking stitch till I get to the heel. I do a slip stitch heel flap and then a gusset style sock, and then I work down towards the toe and I do a rounded toe. That is my recipe for my vanilla socks. So if you're curious, when I say vanilla socks, that is what I mean. This is the first pair that I've finished. So the yarn is quite it's soft, but I think, as with most West Yorkshire Spinners yarns, I find it quite coarse to the touch, but they are really hard wearing. It is quite a hard wearing yarn, so I know that I've got quite a few pairs of socks using West Yorkshire Spinners yarn, and I know that even though it feels quite scratchy on my hands sometimes, and when I'm knitting, when it's on my feet are fine with it. I don't have any problems with that. They fit nicely, they're very durable, and they seem to last me pretty long time. I mean, these are West Yorkshire Spinners yarns. I can't remember what colourway this is, but these are done in, this is a DK weight yarn. This was a Very Pink Knits pattern, and these have lasted me since I learned. This is, I think, the first pair of socks I knit when I was learning to make socks, and that was a good maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and they're still going strong. So yeah, I do find the West Yorkshire Spinners yarns really, really tough, hard wearing, and I haven't had any problems with getting holes and stuff in my West Yorkshire Spinners yarns socks that I can remember. But yeah, so I finished that pair. I had quite a lot left over from those, so I was in a bit of a dilemma as to what to do with them. because it wasn't enough to make a complete sock. It would have been enough to just kind of do parts of the sock. So I just decided to do a bit of a, what would you call it, a scrappy sock, a kind of mix and mishmash sock is what I would call it. So I've done some shorty socks with the yarn that was left over, and because I didn't really have a lot of brain power while I was doing these, for the reasons that I've stated earlier, this is what I came up with. Again, vanilla socks. This time, so I've used the same yarn here for the main body of the sock. Then here I've got some red yarn that was floating around in my stash. I have no idea what it was. Could be Superba, could be Rico, I have no idea, but it's 4-ply. And the same with this. I think the green one is a West Yorkshire Spinners yarn. I mentioned this in my last video. I used it in my last video for something, and I couldn't remember, no, I showed it in my last video. I couldn't remember who the dyer was of this, but it feels like a West Yorkshire Spinners yarn because it's got that coarseness to it. So I've used that for the toes and for the heel flap. These, I'm not sure that these are going to be gifted. I think I'm going to keep these for me because, I mean, they are a bit kind of in your face type socks, and probably not for everyone in terms of the colour coordination. What I could have done, I could have changed up the toes, and I could have kind of, maybe after I'd knit all of this, I started to think maybe I should have just stopped using this pattern for a little while here, and then done a little bit after the red, done another little section of this colourway after the red to kind of make it tie in a bit better, or just rip the whole lot back and then do a separate cuff to blend it all together. But I really didn't have the brain power to do any of that. And so the socks are what they are. This is how they're going to stay, and they will just be mine. They will not be gifted because I don't think anyone's really going to like them, to be fair. So yeah, so that's the second pair of socks I did. Then, because I was on a bit of a sock roll and I was trying to use up some of the yarns that I had, I decided to have a look in my local yarn shop and picked up a ball of West Yorkshire Spinners yarn again. I was looking at the Christmas colourways that they have, and I don't particularly like the gingerbread one, which I think is this year's Christmas colourway. I don't like the look of that one. It's not to my taste, so I decided to go with a previous one. I think it's called Tinseltown, but I've left the yarn label upstairs. This is what it looks like. It's a stripy yarn. This is Tinseltown, and it's the West Yorkshire Spinners yarn, and I've just used a Superba yarn for the toes and the cuffs to kind of blend together, and I have a complete pair. So there we are. So using my vanilla recipe, the same style of socks, but with the West Yorkshire Spinners Tinseltown yarn and a Superba red yarn for the toe and the heels. So that's that. And I'm really pleased with these. The only thing that kind of I was disappointed with about these socks is that when I tried them on, they feel like they're probably about a size 6, and I'm a UK size 7. So I'm hoping that they will kind of stretch a little bit in the wash, and then they will fit quite snugly to my feet. But otherwise, because I really don't want to gift them, because I bought this colourway. I know it sounds bad, but I bought this colourway because I wanted it for myself. I wanted these to be my Christmas socks. Because I don't like the gingerbread ones, so I thought my Christmas socks this year will be these ones, but I made them slightly too small. They feel a little bit, maybe 6.5, UK 6.5 maybe. They feel like they could do with a little bit of stretch. On my blockers, these are size 7 blockers, and you can see they're not quite up here where they would be for me. They're a little bit low on the heel, so I could have done a little bit more in the foot. However, I'm not ripping them back, I'm not doing it again. I'm just going to wear them and make them stretch slightly with my feet, or in the washing machine, whatever. But that's the way I'm rolling with the socks at the moment. So those are the socks that I've been knitting. Next up, I knit a hat. So I have this sparkly black yarn, which is a B&M yarn. I can't remember the name of it, but it will be on my Ravelry page. If you have Ravelry, check out my Ravelry page. The information will be on there. This is the Jason's Cashmere hat. The pattern is called Jason's Cashmere hat. and I got the pattern from Ravelry. I've used it a few times before, and I basically decided to use this because I had some black yarn that I want to finish up. It's got some sparkle in it. I'm not sure if you can see the sparkle. It has got a little bit of sparkle to it. It wasn't enough, it's not enough to make a shawl. I didn't really want to do DK weight socks with it, and so I thought, well, I'm just going to try a hat. And so I went with a tried and tested pattern and used the Jason's Cashmere hat. It looks quite small, however, if I put it on, it fits really nicely. So yeah, I'm quite pleased with this. This, I think, is likely to be gifted. I think, not sure, I may keep it for myself, but I do think this one will probably be gifted. I think it's got cables in it. Hopefully you can see that. Yeah, it's got cables and then just one straight line there. The cables are really easy to do. It's quite an easy pattern for somebody that wants, I'd say for somebody that wants to do this as just something slightly different to a normal stocking stitch hat, basically, then the cable yarn is a very easy cable to do. There's nothing complicated about it. You just have a couple of stitches on the cable needle, bring forward, knit the ones behind, and then there's nothing complicated, and it's just the same pattern all the way around. There's no, there's no different ways of twisting or anything like that. It's just a repetitive pattern, and once you get into the swing of it, it's quite easy to do. And the rib, it's quite a long rib section, so it's got about about 4 inches of rib, possibly. It's quite a long rib section. Just double it over so you've got a brim, and it's good to go. And it's just an ordinary, even like when it comes to the top, there's nothing extra special about the top section. All the detailing is in the actual main body of the hat. So yeah, it's a really nice pattern, very easy to follow, very clear, and I definitely recommend it. And it looks nice. I think I can't remember how many other hats I've done from this pattern, but yeah, it's a really easy one to follow, and I would definitely recommend that. Jason's Cashmere Hat it's called. So the last thing I have to show you in the knitting section is the top that I'm wearing. I'm not sure, my lighting's not too great, but this, I've literally done this in 1 week. It's I showed you the yarn that I was using for the last top. So this is using Drops Bell yarn, Unicolour, in the colour, I don't know, it's navy, but that's the yarn. It's a, sorry, show it that way. Am I doing this wrong? That way. Sorry, it's coming up backwards on the viewfinder. That's the yarn that I'm using. It is 50 grams of yarn. I use 4mm needles. It's like a linen. It's a linen and cotton and viscose yarn. So the information's on there. If you can see that, there's the information of the type of yarn that it is, and you can see here. I think I showed you this last time that it's an interesting kind of ply. But it's fine to work with. It does feel a little bit splitty when I'm working with it. Sometimes it does kind of, when my needle goes into a stitch, it kind of splits slightly, but it's very easy to just go around and just pick up the stitch again properly. So I didn't have too many issues with the yarn. I actually enjoyed working with this. It feels nice on my hands while I'm knitting. It wasn't tough or difficult or rough, or it was nice and soft. It's a nice soft yarn, and because it's drops, it's relatively affordable. It's very affordable, this yarn. So I did originally have 7 balls of this yarn, and I've ended up with 2. So I've now got 2 spare yarn, balls of yarn. So let me tell you what the pattern is. The pattern is a drops design pattern. It's called the Petronella top. That's the top there. I had a look on Ravelry for this pattern. I think you can find this in other places as well. It's not just available on Ravelry. And because I wanted to find a top to use up the yarn that I had, because if you remember last time, if you watched last time's video, I knit the, what's it called? I knit a Hinterm Stein top that had that kind of round neck, halter neck style top, and I was going to originally use the blue yarn to make another one, but because of all the difficulty I had making that one, I decided to try a different pattern for the blue yarn, because I had the green yarn before, the petrol colour yarn. Anyway, if you don't understand what I'm talking about and you want to know what I'm talking about, check out the last video. I have all the information on there. So I decided to knit the Petronella top, this one, in the blue yarn, and this is what it looks like. So it's got a lace detail on the sleeve. Hopefully you can see that here. It's like it's a free pattern, so I can give you as much information as I'd like to. It is the pattern is formed using yarn overs and knit two togethers, so it's quite a simple pattern in terms of the what you have to do within it. So there is yarn overs, knit two togethers. That's how you form the little eyelets along the raglan sleeve. It's a raglan sleeve pattern. It's worked top down, which makes it nice and easy. I mean, I'll get to this in a minute. So the pattern is written in such a complicated way that I think it will be very difficult for a beginner to follow it. I think if you're a beginner and you have the assistance of an intermediate or an advanced knitter, then you'll be able to do it, because there's nothing complicated about the actual design. There is nothing complicated about what you're supposed to do to get this top. The complication is the way that the pattern is written, is the way that you are instructed to do things in the pattern. That's what's complicated. So I was going to give up with this. I did look at the pattern and think, right, yeah, I want to do this, but a lot of people on Ravelry complained that it's really not a clear pattern. But then when I saw the end result, I really liked the top. It's a nice simple top. It looks really good, came out really nicely for them. So I thought I'd give it a go. I started this pattern, this top, 3 times because I just wasn't clear what I was supposed to do. So I did my cast on, and then I did you do a cast on, then you do a couple of rows of garter stitch for the neck, then you increase stitches, and then it divides things up into the sleeve section, the front section, and then the back. Because the way the back is written, it's written in 2 halves. So it describes the instructions for this half and the instructions for this half. It kind of made it a little bit more complicated for me to see what it is they're actually trying to do here. But when I got going on that, when I finally kind of got it in my head, right, I know what it is they're trying to do. They're trying to do the raglan. They've got 2 sleeve sections. They've got front and back, but the back is divided in 2. Then it started to I started to work it out in my head what it was I'm expected to do. And because I had an expectation of where the pattern was going to go next, when I read the pattern, I could kind of tally it up with what it's saying and actually understand what it means. It's difficult to describe it without seeing the pattern, but I mean, it's not the kind of pattern that you're going to do, that you're going to want to try as a beginner, let's face it, unless you have someone that is intermediate knitter or an advanced knitter that will be able to clearly decipher the instructions and make it put it in plain English for you to knit, because the way that it's worded is pretty complicated, but it is a very straightforward pattern in itself. The actual pattern is very straightforward. I hope that you understand what I'm trying to say here. But yes, so this is what it looks like. I'm really happy with the end result. I like the length. The only thing that annoys me is there it is. It's rolling up, but it may not do that once it's been washed, because I haven't blocked it. I don't block things unless I feel like, okay, I really need it to be a particular shape. And for this, I feel like, well, I'm wearing it today to show off to you guys. Maybe when I actually wash it, it will just flatten out. The fabric, I think, will relax a little bit and it'll probably hang better. But it's not, you know, while I'm sitting down and not really doing much, I'm not going to wear it out anywhere posh, so I'm good. But yeah, so that is my knitting section. I hope that wasn't too long-winded for you. I hope you've understood what I meant about this top. It's a really lovely top, but the instructions for the pattern need some work. They could be simplified, is what I'm saying. The instructions could be simplified because it is a simple pattern. And I'm glad that I persevered with it, and I would definitely do it again, knowing what I know, and I know how to interpret the pattern I could definitely do it again. And like I said, it was such a quick knit. I only started it like, when did I start it? I started it on Monday last week, so it's taken me a week to do it. It's really easy to do. It's just, yeah, deciphering the instructions was a task in itself. So yes, so that is my knitting section. Let's move on to the cross stitching. So I have, for my cross stitching section, I have one finish. I have a finished object, which is the Stitchrovia design that I was working on. That's Emma Condon, and it's the Noel piece. That's the design. I've worked it on 32 count sparkly antique white fabric flare, and I've stitched it 2 over 2. I showed it in my last video. I think I'd done the N, O, the E, I'd just started the L, and this is where it's at now. So it's finished. I've put it in this frame, however, it's not the frame that I think I want it to stay in permanently. It doesn't fit the way I want it to. I've not really put it on the board properly. This is a temporary measure while I kind of get my act together and buy some frames. But this is the finished design, finished item. I really love the way it worked out. I can see a stray thread or two behind it, but I love the colours on this piece. It was an easy stitch. It was a quick stitch too. And what can I say? I did make a few mistakes, like I mentioned in the last video, in terms of stitching, but that's fine. I don't think anyone's really going to notice it. I mean, I can't even remember where they are myself now, so it's really not going to be that big a deal. But I really do like the design. I just can't wait to get it into, I want to get it into a proper frame, but yeah. I'm pleased with it. I would definitely recommend the pattern or the chart. And although I'm not overly keen on the coverage of the purple because I can see the white. I mean, it still looks good from a distance. No one's really going to be looking close at it, and it's just a, you know, a picture to be hung up for Christmas time, so I don't think it's that big of a deal. So yeah, I'm pleased with that. That is my finished object. So I have been working on also, I picked up, I've only done work on a couple of projects since the last video. I'm not sure if I did the London piece, but I know I did this one. So I did Bothy Threads London. I worked on this piece. This is on 16 count Ada, blue Ada. I showed you this last time round. I think I've picked this up and I've worked on it in the last few days when I'm not knitting. When I've not been knitting this, I've been stitching on this. And I'll insert a picture of where it was last time. There goes the Q-snap, and this is where I'm at now. So hopefully you can see I've completed this section here. This is the change. I had a gap down here, I think, where I needed to fill in some stitches, and then I've worked on filling in this section here. So it doesn't look like a huge amount, but it is something. It's quite a few stitches, if you can see the box sizes here for the hundreds. So I've done all of this section here, so it's a couple of hundred stitches, and yeah, I'm pleased with that. As I mentioned in my last video, I tend to work on this when I've got TV shows that I'm watching, and I can just work this because it's got blocks of colour. It's quite easy to just isolate one particular area and go, right, I'm just going to do the blue for now, get a long blue thread and just work the blue thread. It's quite easy to do that with this, so it's quite a relaxed stitch. So that's where I am with that one. Next up is Tiki Beach Sunset. So I worked on this one, then I realised that I had some threads missing that I need to purchase. So this is Tiki Beach Sunset. It's worked on 18 count easy guide. That's it there, stitching it 2 over 1, sorry, 18 count easy guide. That's Tiki Beach Sunset. I'm stitching it 2 over 1 and trying to insert a picture of what it looked like last time. Done quite a bit of this, This is where I'm at now. So I have done all of this section. I so badly wanted to see this wind chime, I think it is, and I'd done all of this section where the lizard was, and I started this after the last video, and then I just got really hooked really into it and decided, right, I really want to see the end of this, so I worked down to the end. So that is nearly a page finished. I have some gaps around here, so I've had to purchase some more threads to complete this. But yeah, I'm now hoping to, I went up here with the ones, because I put on order, I ordered the threads that were missing so I can fill in some of the gaps, and it's taken so long because of all the postal strikes to actually get my order, that I thought, right, I'm just going to start this section up here with the colours that I do have. So I've started up here. This is another page. This will be one separate page finish, and then I can move downwards. I'm excited to work downwards because then I start to see some of the sunset coming in, hopefully. So yeah, so that is where I'm at with this. This one's on hold for the time being, because I was focusing on the Bothy Threads London piece, and yeah, that's where I'm at with that. So the last cross stitch piece that I have been working on is the Stitch Into Christmas Stitch Along by Caterpillar Cross Stitch, and let me see, this is the pack. So I bought the kit from them, and that includes the 28 count navy blue even weave with needle and threads and the chart. We are now on part, well, we're waiting for part 6, so I've just completed part 5. This is what it looked like last time you saw it. I've had a couple of parts since then, and this is where it is now. Hopefully you can see that. So there's a lot going on in this. I've made a couple of changes because I wasn't keen on colours and such. So the cracker I changed the colour of. Lots of people, as I mentioned last time, that are doing this stitch along have changed elements of it. Some of the motifs, they've changed them completely and put completely different objects in there. Some of them they've just changed colours. So I've just kind of changed colours really. I've done the same motifs, but I've just changed colours of certain things. So the Christmas cracker, I've changed the colour of it. In hindsight, I would have liked to have changed the Christmas presents and probably the gloves, the mittens, because they look pretty bland to me. I changed the hat because I wanted some purple in there. Hopefully you can see that. Maybe I need a thingy behind it. Let's see. Does that help? That might be better. Yeah. So yeah, I've changed the hat because it's meant to be, I think it's a green colour. Changed that. As I mentioned last time, I changed Santa Claus to make him look a little bit more like me, and then I've changed the little lady down here, who I presume is Mrs. Claus. So I've changed her colour in a bit. I'm thinking, I mean, the lips don't quite stand out, so I may go over that in a darker colour for her lips because they look a bit pale there. But I didn't want her to look clown-like by giving her red lips, so I've just kind of left it as it is. But yeah, other than that, I think I've kept everything else the same. Yeah, everything else is pretty much the same, and I quite like it. I'm just waiting for section 6 now, which I'm assuming will be, I think there's a big section across the bottom, two motifs or something, and then the border, the rest of the border. So then that will be the complete design. So yeah, it's a really fun stitch. As I've mentioned before, I like doing little motifs. I really enjoy stitching projects where I'm stitching little motifs like that. The one thing that I notice about this though is that because because everything is not linked, so you have to they're all isolated little images, little motifs. So my stitch count keeps going out on everything. I'm maybe missing one row here, so I have to make up for it lower down here. I might be out in the border, so I've had to make up for it. I've had to match it on this border, so I've had to do a lot of kind of fudging just to make sure that things fit and they meet wherever they're supposed to meet. I'm much more relaxed about mistakes because I figure that, you know what, as long as it fits within the actual fabric, doesn't matter if it's one row out or not. Doesn't matter if it's one box to the left where it shouldn't be, because at the end of the day I'm never going to remember it when I display it like in a year's time or whatever, so it's really not that big a deal. Just having it like one stitch too far to the left or whatever, so not really that fussed. I enjoy the stitching process, and that's the main thing for me. It's just a lot of fun stitching. So that is where I'm at with that. If you're doing this stitch along, let me know in the comment section below. What do you think of the actual design? Are you enjoying it? Have you changed anything up? I know loads of people have changed certain motifs up, and I'm loving seeing those on the Facebook site and on Instagram. So it's a lot of fun just seeing how people vary up the original design. It's really great. So that is it for the cross stitching. The last thing I have is crochet, and that is basically this blanket. So I decided to use up leftover yarn and do a granny blanket. I think it was Ali from Little Drops of Wonderful that I saw had done a granny blanket, and I thought, oh, I really love the look of her one, so I thought I'm going to have a go at this. And I found a pattern on YouTube, I think it was, may not have been. I found a pattern somewhere to kind of figure out the numbers, and so I've started my own. I can't tell you what the pattern is because I've looked at so many different patterns for this, and it's very simple. It's just granny stripes, and it's just, you know, trebles, do we call them? I can't remember if we called them trebles or double crochets in the UK. I can't remember which terminology I use. Do I use the US or the UK ones? Anyway, this is what they are. For me, they're trebles. So it's just 3 trebles, then a chain 1, then 3 trebles, chain 1, 3 trebles, all the way along. And you just keep going all the way along. It's just a very easy going pattern, great for TV watching, and I've got lots of ends to what do you call it, sew in at the end here where I've changed colours. I'm trying not to, there isn't really any pattern to this. I'm just trying to make sure that I don't have like 2 rows of white too close together or 2 reds too close together or whatever. And I'm trying, where I can, if I've got enough yarn, I'm trying to do 2 rows of the same colour at a time. So actually I could do with another brown, couldn't I? I'm just thinking about where I could go with this, so I don't need to wait. Yeah, anyway, so that's it. And it's quite wide. It's quite a wide piece. So it should be nice and cosy when it's finished. It's not going to be finished anytime soon because it is quite a big, it's going to be quite a big blanket. But I'm just using scraps of yarn. I'm using double knit yarns as well as 4-ply yarns. I'm just doubling up the 4-ply for this blanket to make it the same weight of yarn throughout. So that is that. I'm just going to change my battery. So the last thing to share with you is the giveaway winner. And like I said, I use the term giveaway loosely because there were only, I did the draw a while ago and there were only a couple of people that were interested in this, and the person that random comment picker selected was Mel Patton. So can you, Mel, if you contact me, let me have your postal information, I can get this sent out to you. So that is the sidecar, centre sidecar stocking pattern. So there we are. That is it. That's all I got to share with you. If you want to share anything in the comment section below the video, please feel free to do that there. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. In the meantime, if you want to see what I'm getting up to in between videos, check out my Instagram, because sometimes I post a bit more regularly on there, progress updates on stuff that I'm working on. So check out my Instagram, L&S Crafts, to see in-betweeny kind of updates. But for now, thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed seeing what I've been up to the last few weeks, and I hope you guys are well. Please stay safe and see you in the next one. Bye for now.